Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So Thursday means it's Tier 1 Thursday, and today we're heading all the way back to Legacy to check out one of the most powerful and consistent combo decks really in any format. This is Legacy Storm, and this build in specific has taken a Magic Online user by the name of Glimpse of Randomness to several 5-0 finishes in Legacy leagues, but as with most of our tier decks, this is a pretty common build. There's a handful of flex slots you see in these decks, but for the most part, the combo in the foundation of a Legacy Storm deck is going to be pretty much the same from build to build. So a quick reminder before we break down the deck: if you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So Storm in Legacy is pretty interesting, and I think the easiest way to break down this deck for someone who might not really know how it works and kind of the plan and the tricks of the deck is to basically just go step by step through the combo. So first off, we have a bunch of cantrippy type cards, and these cards aren't truly combo pieces. They're helpful in setting up our combo, and that's why I decided to show them first, because really they make sure we have the right pieces we need in our hand to go off and win the game with one big turn. At the same time, they do also work with the combo in the sense that our combo is just casting a bunch of stuff in a turn. A Storm deck wins by generating a huge Storm count, and Brainstorm is not only set up our combo in the early game, but 1 mana, get a Storm count. Gitaxian Probe in specific is great with that plan because it's 0 mana, add 1 to your Storm count, doesn't even cost you a card. Cobalt Therapy and Duress are kind of similar to our Brainstorms and Ponders. They don't really help us combo directly. They're not part of the Storm plan. However, they help make sure that the coast is clear for us to combo off. So on turn 1, if we're not brainstorming and pondering to get the perfect hand to storm off, we can target our opponent, make sure they don't have Force of Will. That's a big one. Daze at the right time can also get us, or Counterspell. Those are the things we're most afraid of with this deck. If it wasn't for Force of Will, this would most likely be one of, if not the best deck in all of Legacy, and it's still very good in Tier 1, even with Force of Will in the format. So Cobalt Therapy Duress, get rid of counter spells that can disrupt our plans, and now we're to the actual combo plan. So to storm off, we need a lot of mana, and Legacy has some insane rituals. Dark Ritual, 1 mana, add 3 black mana. Cabal Ritual, depending on when we cast it, can be 2 mana, add 5 mana, which is really insane because we do cast a lot of spells, so we can get to Threshold pretty easily and have 7 cards in our graveyard. Then we're adding 5. Worst case, adding 3 is still a gain of mana. And then Lotus Petal is free Storm count because it's 0 mana, adds a mana, which is nice, and it also enables us to occasionally go off as early as turn 1. This is how we can, on turn 1, have enough mana to go through our combo. So step 1, make a lot of mana. Step 2 is Lion's Eye Diamond, and it might not be obvious how insane this card is because it's kind of weird, and if you're relatively new to Magic, it doesn't look that good. I mean, it says discard your hand. Why would you want 3 mana if you have to discard your hand to get it? But in this deck, it's basically a Black Lotus with upside, as funny as that sounds. So the main synergy of this deck is to cast all your rituals, your cantrips, generate as much Storm count as you can. We're going to cast an Inferno Tutor, and then with the Inferno Tutor on the stack, we sack all of our Lion's Eye Diamonds. So we're going to have to discard our hand. That's fine. That's actually good, because if we're empty-handed, Inferno Tutor is just Demonic Tutor. We get to search for any card that we want to. So we discard our hand, but we get to tutor up something that's going to win us the game in one way or another. Dark Petition is mostly to find our Inferno Tutor. It's kind of like a backup Inferno Tutor. We can cast it to get our Inferno Tutor, then go through the cast Inferno Tutor with it on the stack, sack the Lion's Eye Diamond, get the mana. So what are we finding with Inferno Tutor? It kind of depends. The most common card to get in this plan is probably just Past in Flames. So you cast all your rituals, all your cantrips, do all that stuff. You Inferno Tutor, crack your Lion's Eye Diamond, get a Past in Flame, then you just recast all your stuff from your graveyard and trust that that's going to win you the game. You cantrip into what you need, you find your finishers, you can also Inferno Tutor again, and you're going to be empty-handed because your your hand is empty from Lion's Eye Diamond and tutor up whatever you need that way. So this is kind of plan A, is just Past in Flames. And then even though we're empty-handed, our graveyard becomes our hand and we win that way. Plan B is, let's say our graveyard is shut down and we don't have the ability to use our graveyard cards to storm off with Past in Flames. We can Inferno Tutor for an Ad Nauseam, cast the Ad Nauseam, and just draw a ton of cards. Most of our cards are super, super cheap. 0 mana, 1 mana, 2 mana at the absolute max. So we can usually draw like 10, 15 cards, like a decent number of cards if our life total is high with Ad Nauseam, and then hopefully using Lotus Petals and more Lion's Eye Diamonds and Rituals, we can piece together the win thanks to all that card draw. We can also occasionally just win the game, so if we cast enough spells beforehand with our Brainstorms and Lotus Petals and stuff, we might be able to just Inferno Tutor directly for our Tendrils of Agony, and if we've cast at least 9 spells with our Lion's Eye Diamonds, Inferno Tutors, etc., we just Tendrils our opponent, win the game that way. Another neat trick is we can Inferno Tutor for an Inferno Tutor just to generate an extra storm count, and then use the second Inferno Tutor to tutor up our Tendrils of Agony, or if we have enough mana, Inferno Tutor for Inferno Tutor for Inferno Tutor just to generate that storm. Backup plan is Empty the Warrens. If our opponent has a Leyline of Sanctity, for example, and we can't win by throwing a Tendrils at their face and a ton of copies of Tendrils at their face, we just make a whole bunch of goblins and hope we win that way. We also have a Miserly Abrupt Decay, and this is because Legacy is a crazy format. There are decks that just play main deck Chalice of the Void, which is really hard to beat. There's even some decks that are going to have like main deck Rest in Peace, also a pretty good option. So this is just kind of a catch-all to hate cards that might show up in the main deck, Thorn of Amethyst, all that stuff. In the mana base, we get some fetches, we get some basic lands, and then we get a bunch of original duels. Speaking of the sideboard, Abrupt Decay and Chain of Vapor come in to fight against those cards we were just talking about. Rest in Peace, they fight against Leyline of Sanctity, things that make our spells more expensive, like Thalias and Thorns of Amethyst. All that stuff is very good against a deck that's trying to storm off, but Abrupt Decay and Chain of Vapor are a great answer. Xanthid Swarm is an additional answer to Force of Will. Play it on turn 1, you attack. Once it attacks, your opponent can't cast spells that turn. It doesn't get in damage, but it makes it so in your post-combat main phase, your opponent can't Force of Will any of your stuff. Massacre is an answer to creatures, essentially. It's kind of a Pyroclasm-esque effect, but it's free if your opponent has a Plains and you have a Swamp, so this is great against like Death and Taxes in specific that can kind of prison you out of the game to some extent with Thalias and tax effects. This wipes all that stuff away for a really cheap cost. Sensei's Divining Top and Dark Confidant give us some more card filtering advantage. Leyline of the Void for graveyard decks and an additional Tendrils, and that is Storm for Legacy. And that's been our Instant Deck Tech for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon.